And we're back on USA Prepares on 1340 AM, the Ozarks Big Talker. I'm Mark Wright, and my co-host is Vincent Finelli, and we have on the phone the world-renowned foremost economic forecaster, Bob Chapman. Vince Finelli, will you welcome Bob Chapman to USA Prepares today?
I would love to. Bob Chapman writes a publication called the International Forecaster. Prior to that, from 1978 to 1990, it was called the Gary Allen Report, 40,000 subscribers worldwide. From 1990 to present, the International Forecaster has 10,000 subscribers, and it is the most copied publication of its kind in the world. Welcome, Bob Chapman.
Well, thank you very much, and it's very nice to be here for the first time.
Well, we are just delighted that you're here. You know, our son, John Michael, has been a subscriber, probably your youngest subscriber ever. Is that correct?
That is certainly correct, for about maybe 7 years, 8 years.
Well, you've provided him an education that is just beyond compare. Bob, I'd like to talk about, we were going to ask you, is Fidel Castro one of your subscribers? Can you say yes or no to that?
Yes, he has been for a long time. And so is Mr. Chavez in Venezuela. Evidently, the other side wants to know what's really going on. And the Rothschilds in London, of all people. I was rather shocked when that one came in. But we're an equal opportunity publisher. And if somebody wants to read what we believe is the truth, well, we think that's okay no matter who they are.
Well, we do too. And, we really enjoy reading the truth. You know, your publication is 35 pages this week, and it runs typically between 30 and 40 pages twice a week. But the Wednesday issue, today's issue, is 35 pages, and it's got some fascinating material in it. We have put a link on our website, usaprepares.com. So if people are interested in getting a free copy of your newsletter, they can just click on that link right next to your YouTube video on our website at usaprepares.com. Is that okay with you if they do that and request it? Okay.
You know, this is for the public domain. At 75 years old, I don't do this to enrich myself because where I'm going, they don't use money. Yeah,
that's where we're all going. You know, inflation is insidious confiscation of our labor, and I would love it if you would give our audience a definition of what inflation is. I know John Michael years ago sent you a letter, and he said, you know, his grandparents, who are my parents, my dad used to have one job, and he was able to provide for the entire family, and we had a car and a new house, and everything was just fine. And he did that on $2,400 a year back in the 50s. And John Michael said to you, what happened that made my mother, his grandmother, have to go to work or want to go to work? It just kind of happened. It happened to a whole bunch of women at the same time. Can you relate to that and talk about inflation in those kinds of terms?
Well, in August the 15th, 1971, the United States government decided that they were going to go off of the gold standard. Theretofore, the U.S. dollar had been backed by gold. And when that happened, the fiscal spending and the antics of the Federal Reserve became what one might call promiscuous. And what happened was that they started creating more money than what they had coming in. And at the same time, the Fed was targeting not interest rates as they do today, but they targeted the money supply. Now, the real cause of inflation is and can really only be the Federal Reserve System, which is privately owned, and it's owned by major banks in the United States and in Europe. They have the permission under the Federal Reserve Act to create good or full employment and to keep inflation at bay. they've done a terrible job
Obviously.
over the last almost 100 years. So what they do is they create money out of thin air, and that money gets spent, and that process is called monetization. And what monetization really means is that the Fed is creating too much money in credit. And the Fed is really the only entity that can create inflation. And that is how the prosperity that America has experienced since the Second World War has happened. And the removal of gold backing from behind the dollar was a symbol of extravagant spending, mostly by the Federal Reserve. In that process, what they did is they would create surges in the economy and then recessions.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, they were the ones who were doing this, so they knew when the economy was going to be good and the stock market was going to go up, and they also knew when it was going to go down.
You know, Bob.
So their owners at J.P. Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and, of course, the cast of characters were slightly different after the Second World War. And what they did was loot the American public by making inside information, not copying it, not getting it, creating it.
Yeah, manipulating the economy for their own benefit, their own gain.
That's right. And that's why we got to get rid of the Fed. And I've been talking to people about that for 52 years. And finally, in the last 15 or 20 years, because of the Internet and talk radio, we are breathing down the back collar of the Federal Reserve and all their bankers in Wall Street and in banking and insurance, all these people who have been living off the hard work of the American public all those years.
That's absolutely correct. You know, I know some people who have taken business classes and who have their master's degree in business, and they believe that these inflation cycles are natural. They don't know that they are man-made. They don't know that they're insidious theft of the work of the common people.
And that's correct. It reminds me of other fabrications, like how the Japanese came to bomb Pearl Harbor, or just recently how the phoniest copy in the history of copying a live birth certificate saying the president was born in Hawaii in a hospital that didn't exist at that time, and other flaws. Or the business of Mr. Bin Laden being shot, this folklore. The man died in December 1971. But the reason I cite 2001, excuse
2001, that's correct.
The reason I cite these things is they are a form of psychological warfare. They're brainwashing. They're propaganda. And the media, except for talk radio and for the Internet, is totally controlled by these people.
Yes,
and
we've seen it.
You saw the barrage of what was going on in the last couple of days in reference to Mr. Bin Laden and a couple of weeks before that, the president. It's ridiculous. But half the Americans fall for it. And in time, they're going to find that both instances were fabrications. Why? In order to make something else happen that they wanted to happen.
How much money do these people really need? It's unbelievable that they would manipulate the system, have people go without medicine because they can't afford their prescriptions, and just have people die because they want more. What do you think?
Well, you have to look at the concept. Money is power to them. When you make a lot of money, the money becomes irrelevant. You say to yourself, well, how could that be?
Bob, we're going to a break. We'll be back in just a minute.
To the Wall Street You need the luck to make a buck if you want to be a Getty Rothschild. You gotta be cool on Wall Street.
Is Vincent Finelli, and we have world-renowned economist Bob Chapman on the phone. Vincent, resume this wonderful, intriguing interview.
Bob, we've been talking about the insidious theft of our labors through inflation.
It's one thing to have a job in it.
I think our audience has got a flavor for what is happening to us. What can we do about it? What is the safest thing that we can do to protect our stored wealth, what we have we've accumulated as the fruits of our labors over the years? What do we do?
Well, I think the first thing that people should do, or who don't happen to be farmers, is put away food and freeze-dry, dehydrated food fits for most people in case you don't have a job anymore, or your house is foreclosed on, or your cars are taken away because you can't pay for them because you don't have a job. And I think it's very important that you have food put away, and maybe a water filter, and always have something in the home in order to defend your family as well. And for those who have investable funds, I prefer, because I think it's the only place to go that's safe nowadays, and that is into gold and silver coins, bullion, and shares. And so that's what I think the best method is.
Okay. Can you describe the difference in what it takes to buy gold, bullion coins? I agree with you there, and I agree with you on the silver side. I like bullion. That's my favorite play. I think it's the safest. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it is. I think the reason I like coins the best is that they're recognizable, and they're not in bars. I mean, you can buy 1/10 ounce gold coins, 1/5, 1/4, 1/2, 1 ounce, 1.2 ounces, and so you have a great variety. And with silver coins, you have American Silver Eagles, and on the other hand, you have pre-1965 90% silver coins, which are dimes, quarters, and halves that used to circulate within the American economy until they stopped manufacturing them. And everybody knows what they are, and so I prefer those methods personally of the accumulation of gold and silver. If I had lots and lots of money, maybe I would be buying gold and silver bullion because you only need so many coins, so to speak.
Very interesting. You know, I did a calculation years ago, and I found out that it took about 50 ounces of gold to buy a new Corvette at list price almost at any time during the production of the Corvette automobile. Didn't matter what year you bought it, the list price divided by the number or the price of gold at that time would equal about 50 coins. And we also found out that when I was a youngster back in the 1960s, I could buy a gallon of gasoline for a quarter, and I could still take one of those 90% quarters that you're talking about and go to a coin dealer and trade it in for Federal Reserve notes and still buy at least 1 gallon of gasoline.
And it's true today, too.
Yes, it absolutely is true. So are you saying that food's the way to go, obviously, and to preserve your wealth, there are going to be some bumps in the road with the price of gold and silver. It may be a little unnerving at some times, but in the long run, it's the best play?
It is, and there's one facet we haven't talked about, which are gold and silver shares.
Yes, let's talk about that.
And they represent mining companies that take gold and silver out of the ground, or will be doing so. And historically, the greatest leverage for those who are investors who want to assume the internal leverage that exists in those companies, the reward for investing is usually higher, sometimes very, very much higher.
The